let's start with this debate on the economy. The candidates engaged this mortgage meltdown this week. Take a look.
The Federal Housing Administration should also stand ready to be a temporary buyer, to purchase, restructure, and resell underwater mortgages.
It's not the duty of government to bail out and reward those who act irresponsibly.
The Dodd-Frank package is not a bailout for lenders or investors who gambled recklessly. They will take their losses.
George, I would guess you think John McCain has the better of the argument there.
Yes, he does. There are 55 million mortgages in this country, 94% of which are being handled just fine. Not effortlessly. Families are scraping and sacrificing to get by.
He made that point.
Quite. And they will not be amused, that 94%, if the other 6% get what will be by some other means a bailout. Now, Mrs. Clinton's answer in the command control model of Democrats is price controls. That is, to control the price of money by freezing for 5 years the mortgage interest rates. The Republicans have put themselves in a bind because people now say, look, if you have Wall Street socialism, whereby you save Bear Stearns, or at least save J.P. Morgan to buy Bear Stearns, and you are thereby socializing the losses and keeping the profits private, why not help everybody? Soon we'll hear from everyone in the country who has a student loan. He says, that's a burden, help me.
Well, you know, McCain's response, the kind of let them eat cake response, and George, it's your response a little bit too, won't wash. And I don't think it will wash because there are public effects. You know, with regard to Bear Stearns, there was the problem of contagion, a run on the bank. With regard to mortgages that are underwater, people who are abandoning their homes, or people who are going to lose their homes, there are social consequences for neighborhoods. This is not something that is just your run-of-the-mill economic or financial crisis. And I think that, therefore, it is very important and appropriate for the government to do something. I mean, John McCain makes Herbert Hoover look like an activist.
He was.
When I listened to McCain give that speech, I immediately thought of Herbert Hoover's Treasury Secretary. Liquidate farmers, liquidate workers, liquidate real estates, purge the rottenness from the system. You can't do this. This is a major financial crisis. You've got to do something, and that does include helping, you know, homeowners who were sucked in. You know, it would be a little different if Alan Greenspan hadn't said, you should all take out adjustable rate mortgages. It would be a little different if the administration hadn't said housing prices are going up, if they hadn't said there is no bubble. So this is a situation where a lot of people have been caught. It's a natural disaster, in effect. It's like Katrina. And to say, oh, let people suffer is like saying, well, let those people who made the mistake of staying in New Orleans suffer.
I mean, even the administration, George Bush is saying the Federal Reserve Board was right, and the administration is coming up with its own version of a bailout for homeowners. Well, modest version.
Well, Paul is right. People are feeling underwater. It's not just a crisis on Wall Street. It's a crisis on Main Street. They're concerned that the credit market will no longer lend to average Americans. How do you rebuild consumer confidence when they can't go to the bank and get a loan to, buy a car, get a new wash and dry?
George is chomping at the bit here.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know where to begin here. A natural disaster. The government of the United States, bipartisan move, pressured lenders into lending to marginal borrowers as a public policy. You say this is a run on banks, a run on a bank in effect with Bear Stearns. Between 1988 and 1992, 905 banks in this country failed. No one remembers because it didn't matter. I remember in the 1970s, late 70s, I called a friend in New York in the financial circle and said, what should I think about the Chrysler bailout? He said, the danger is it'll work, and that we will then thereby whet our appetite for this. That friend in financial circles was Alan Greenspan. I just want to say,
this is... I don't blame you, but there's a truly reprehensible thing where Angelo Mozillo and Countrywide went out and did this essentially predatory lending to people, giving them complex mortgages they didn't understand, the most complex mortgages to the least sophisticated buyers, and now they're saying, oh, we were forced into doing it because it was affirmative action. This is a really terrible thing.
What is mysterious about the phrase variable rate?
Well, people look at there was predatory lending. I think the fact of the matter is,
the fact of the matter
is there is a huge and real estate bubble to the extent of several $1 trillion. It is bursting before our very eyes. And the question from a practical standpoint is how much of the loss, and this is going to be a loss of several $1 trillion, how much of the loss is going to be borne by homeowners, how much by investors, and what is the public's responsibility and taxpayers' responsibility
But
to
everyone should
ease
take a
the
hit,
adjustment.
right?
Everybody is going to take a hit, George, and everybody should take a hit.
But Paul, you also got into the debate between the Democrats on this issue in your column this week. You say that Senator Clinton has been surprisingly bold and progressive, yet Obama, though liberal, tends to be cautious and relatively orthodox. Explain.
Yeah, so if you look, even that little clip that we just saw with the, now Frank Dodd, which is what Obama was referring to, is a program of incentives to get lenders to restructure mortgages, which they hope will work.
And guaranteed with government money, though.
Yeah, but the incentive is the guarantee. But it's sort of relying still on this action. Now, Hillary Clinton is for that, but also for basically a modern version of the Homeowners Loan Corporation that existed during the Depression, which is if this stuff doesn't work, we will actually come in and do it directly as well. So it is a more aggressive strategy. It's kind of similar to the healthcare debate. It's the candidates are moving in the same direction, but Hillary Clinton is moving further. It's a more aggressive policy.
Well, I guess that lays to rest the question of who's the more liberal, Obama or Clinton. I mean, Hillary Clinton is reaching back to a New Deal policy, and I think it was appropriate for the New Deal, but it could be argued, Paul, just like with health care, that as a practical matter, it's not going to get off the ground. The Dodd-Frank, in which incentives are provided for any investor who comes up and says, look, I'm going to buy these pieces of paper. We don't know what they're worth. I'm going to buy them at a discount. I'm going to restructure them, give them back to homeowners in a way that they can repay those loans. That makes much more practical,
Remember, they're both
practical
for
effect.
that, but she's willing to step. You know, there's been a consistent pattern through this that they're both. They both, I guess, will say they're progressive, not liberal, but they're both liberal. But Hillary has been more in that direction.
And Donna, the voters so far are still giving Clinton the edge on these on economics.
And there's no question. Look, I don't think it's about liberalism or progressivism. They're being leaders. They're showing that they want to get the country out of this financial turmoil, something that John McCain clearly did not do when he gave his speech this week. He appears to tell people without health care, don't get sick, and now if you have a bad mortgage, just, get over it.
George, you said last week that, McCain had to start to step more on the economy, had to learn how to talk about the economy. Do you think he made advances this week on that?
I do. I think this is a center-right country, and his proposal was a center-right proposal. Mr. Obama correctly said, McCain is offering us an you're-on-your-own society, to which McCain should say, yeah, pretty much. We believe we are the party of individual responsibility and individualism, and that would distance him, by the way, from the Bush administration, under which now the Fed is becoming not just the lender of last resort, but the deal maker of first resort, and all kinds of sort of corporate welfare. Can I propose Will's Law? We can all agree on this. 3 liberals and Will. Will's Law is that no company, such as J.P. Morgan now, or Bear Stearns, getting substantial subvention from the federal government, shall be allowed to pay any of its executives more than a GS-15. That's $124,000. That would stop the run to Washington.
George, that sounds pretty good to me.
I thought so.
But let me just say one other thing.
Consensus.
I think the Will's Law ought to be expanded to include oil companies should not get extra money from the government. Pharmaceutical companies should not have their research and development subsidized by the government. We should have no corporate welfare at all in this country.
Sign
Well,
me up.
good. Well, let's go forward. I
All
think
of
we
this
have
agreement.
a great deal of agreement.
We had to all be on